It's a new year, you're just the two of us, and we appreciate you. Thanks for being a loyal part of our community, and we look forward to another fabulous year with you in our lives. This is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics, including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more. I wanted to talk to you personally about this, or have you talk about this, because I personally know how you are with your finances. And I've known you for quite a while now. And since I've known you, you've been good with your money, which was even a little not really shocking, but was interesting to me from when I first met you, because you were about what, like 19? Yeah. So 19 years old when we first met, and you were good with your money then. We would have conversations about money and finance, and I was impressed, because not a lot of people in their late teens, even early 20s, even in the 30s, are good with money. So, the things that we talked about back then impressed me. And so I figure, what better way to start a new year than to talk about finance and how to maintain your finances, how even as a teenager because your habit started before you were 19.
Right.
And that comes partly from having supportive parents to set a good example for you and things like that. But once you become a certain age, you move out and you're doing life on your own, it's kind of, it's up to you whether you keep that going or not.
Right.
So let's talk
Mhm.
teenage years first, and pointers on how to obtain and maintain financial health.
Right. So, one thing that I will say in the beginning, so my dad is an entrepreneur. He's really good with money. He's really good with everything. I started building my finances when I was 12 years old. 11 years old, actually.
Oh,
When was
nice.
Hold on. So it'll tell me I've been a member since something.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I've been a member since 2011. So I
Okay.
was 11 years old when I opened up a bank account uh that was monitored by my dad, because I was still too young to be able to have access to it at that time.
Right.
So that's when that aspect started. So once I started racking in money, and like Christmases or birthdays or whatever, I didn't
Hmm.
spend that money. I just told my dad, hey, just put this in my savings account. So it was around 2013 that no 2012 that I started to rack up big money on Christmas, like really big money. Enough to where, like, my one of my grandparents started giving us a lot of money each Christmas.
Okay.
So because I think they're like starting to see that, like, we're growing up, we're gonna need to start building, because my mom's parents, her dad was an entrepreneur too.
Okay.
Um so if I remember that correctly, I think so. So, but like they started to give us big amount, one check with good money on it for my sister, my family, and we would get a good portion of it. So I started to put that into my savings account too. And then my dad starts to notice, like, hey, she's racking up money in this account.
Yeah.
So my dad gave me a Motley Fool's book and told me to read it. So I read it, learning about stocks and whatever. So I told my dad, hey, like, I finished reading this book. He was like, all right, do you want to do it? And I was like, sure, like, why not? Start investing. Um, so then what we did was he created a custodial, like, stock account for me. So it was my stock account, but it was just under him because, like I said, I was too young at that time to have my own.
Right.
So we would just every Christmas from up to like even now, every Christmas I would get that money and I would put either all of it or some of it or like most of it, always about 75% of it into my stock account and invest in more stocks. By the time I think it was 21 where it officially went over to my account, my bank account, and it went into my name. I have not touched that money in that account except for adding on to it, each year. And I would invest more stocks. I've made really good revenues. And I also, in some stocks, what you have is called, what's it called now? I'm blanking. Where some of it kind of, oh my gosh, now I'm blanking. Oh my, I can feel like the pressure now. Like, but like, so some stocks will have what they call, it's loading. Hold on.
You're fine.
It's hard to remember every aspect of everything, but so some stocks, let's say for instance, I think it's Starbucks that does it too. It's Starbucks account. It gives you, hold on, trade price dividend. It gives you a dividend.
Yeah.
So like you'll start like adding money that you can put back into that account for, like more stocks, turns it into like brokerage cash. Now, I don't have enough stocks to where that is constant yet. I do have some stocks, but not enough to like make big changes like in a shorter period of time. So so that's what some stocks do, but over time, and one thing that if anybody who's thinking about going into the stock market is, I would say, first of all, don't touch it. Do not sell it. Once you get a stock, do not sell it until at least you've had it for a year. Because if you sell it like halfway through the year of having it, then you're going to be heavily taxed more than if you do it after a year, because I think then it's considered more of a long-term investment than trying to make quick cash,
Yes.
So that was one thing my dad taught me too. And then also one thing I've also learned about the stock market is don't watch it. Like watch
Yeah.
it, but don't watch it so often. And there was actually a King of Queens episode when they invested into a stock or within the stock market, and his mood was good when it was going up. The next day, his mood was down when it was going down. Like he put so much of his like mood based on it. I check it maybe in bypassing probably every day when I'm looking at my account real quick, or if I'm transferring money real quick. So I see it, but I don't really give much attention to it, But one thing about it is if you start investing in it, I would say check it every year, just kind of see what's going up, what's going down, if you think this company is about to go bankrupt, then maybe sell, but make sure you've had it for at least a year. Then what I would do is that, like, let's say 1 year, this is from personal experience, but I'm gonna just change the numbers a little bit, so let's say a couple years ago, my stock account was at, I don't know, let's say, I'm gonna just lowball it just because I don't really want to put everything out there. But let's say a couple years ago it was at $25,000, and then a couple years later it's now at like $10,000, That's going to happen. That's going to happen, especially when you change presidency, especially when the financial situation of the country is changing. Like, that's going to change.
Right.
But the thing about it is, it's going to go back up.
It'll also change back. Right.
Exactly. It's just not going to be maybe as quick. Maybe it'll be quicker that it'll change back up. Maybe it'll be slower, but it will always come back up. So my advice is to make sure it's a long-term thing.
Right.
Don't just put it in there. Oh, raised about $1,000. I'm taking it out right now. Like, don't do that. And also, one thing that happens also with companies, especially like the bigger companies, is that they split shares.
Yeah.
That is the best feeling when you hear that company you're investing is splitting their shares. So that means you're getting double of what you put into it. Not exactly double. They're just splitting them. They're just so you get more shares.
Yeah.
But like, you don't really gain money from that yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just making, does that make sense?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like, when they split it, then you have twice as much as you had of their shares. And as those shares go up, then you'll start seeing like, hey, like this was a good thing.
Yeah. So we had an experience like that. Well, when I say we in this situation, I mean Quentin. There was a split. I feel like maybe like the company split or partnered, I think is what happened, and then it
They split the stocks.
yeah.
I think I'm using the right term. Now I'm questioning all my terms now, but like, yeah, the stocks split, and so now there was double of the amount of stocks
Yes.
it had. Yes.
Yeah. And then yeah. And then I think there was something too where like companies merged, and I think he had stocks in both. And so it kind of like it merged together, and I think he lost out on a little bit, but it wasn't like it wasn't like a huge effect. I mean, it may have been even like change. It wasn't it didn't affect him a lot. But it will happen. People
Right.
merge, people split, but it goes up and down.
Right. But when I talk about the split, I'm not talking about within the company. I'm just talking about their stock shares.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The stock shares double. Like, for instance, this part I don't mind really sharing, but one thing about it was like Tesla. I have a good amount of stocks in Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
Their shares split.
Gotcha.
And so I had double amount of shares in the company.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like with Tesla, it just kind of was like, all right, well, like company's doing good, whatever.
Right.
And also now don't quote me on this. I think the reason why some companies do that is because like the stock prices are getting so high, maybe that they want to split the shares again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me just make sure I'm using the right term because I stock split. Okay, stock splits are generally done when the stock prices of a company has risen so high that it might become an impediment to new investors. Therefore, a split is often a result of a growth or prospects of future growth, and it is a positive signal. So, okay, so I was using the right term. You got me confused there for a second because I was like, what are you talking about? Like,
well, don't listen to me. I don't know exactly anywhere near as much as you do. So
yeah, it's a stock split is when a company divides and increases the number of shares available to the buy and sell in an exchange. So, like, yes, it's just so that's one thing that like you do kind of like also have to keep an eye on with the companies you invest in, because
yeah.
notice that they're about to merge with a company. And you
Yeah.
start feeling like, hey, like this isn't gonna work out. Like, so, um, or like there's you just have to be careful, very careful about which companies you invest in. Because like one thing my dad taught me was was like invest in stocks into companies that you love, that you already invest in, like buying their products, because that's also, then you're just feeding yourself at that point too, a little bit, like very little, but you are feeding into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I have stocks in Apple, Disney, Tesla. Well, I mean, I don't own a Tesla, but my dad does, so he's feeding me, right? um so um and then like I do have one in Starbucks. I don't use Starbucks. That one is maybe a company that I would consider selling in
Yeah.
maybe I'll wait a little bit further down the future, but that's one stock that's like, hey, like it's doing all right, and I have good amount of money in it, but it's just like, like I've made profit, but at the same time, it's just like, Starbucks is Starbucks, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
don't invest any money into Starbucks on a daily basis or at all. So it's just not my thing. Um, I have like stocks and other things that I feed into. So, um, and then now let's move past the stock portion and talk about like savings and gaining money through a job and all that.
Yeah. Well, before we do that real quick, I just want to reiterate the the importance of creating an account as a teenager, and this is something that I wish that I would have done for my older kids. We have done it for my youngest,
Mhm.
and it's like I said, it's something I wish I would have done for my older kids. I've taught we've taught the younger three more about money than I did when the older two were older,
Mhm.
and are teaching them now, but it's better to start earlier for your
Yep.
kids, for yourself, and don't use it.
Right.
And this is something that I don't use it and invest in things that are going to benefit you. This is something I'm like teaching myself because I had this obsession with Duncan, and I went there every single day for a while and just wasted this money. And I'm like, I think it was my husband who was like, well, you should be putting that money into stock instead of, I mean, I went so much, I was like, I don't even know. It just became a habit. It was a
Right.
coping mechanism. I don't even know why I do this every day,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I was like, that's what I should be putting my money in, because money in the stocks would benefit me instead of just something that I don't even really need or sometimes don't even want. I'm just doing it out of habit.
Right. Right.
So do it early and keep it
Right. Exactly.
and
One
make
thing,
it benefit you.
right. And one thing I would teach for like people with younger children.
Hmm.
And I guess the statement is towards, I guess, in the nicest way possible. And the statement is, don't use your kids' money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
100%.
I'm not saying that's every parent. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, hey, they're a kid. You know what I mean? Build them
yeah,
up for success and have a good amount of money for when they're ready to go off to college or whatever. Um, and then I've heard some parents being like, well, they're living here. And I'm like, they didn't choose to be, you know what I mean?
yeah,
To look now, if they're 18 or 7, no, not 7. If they're like 18 years old, they're living in your house and you want to teach them responsibility, yes, let them pay rent then. You know what I mean?
My
But
oldest pays rent, yeah, and my 20-year-old, she's in college, otherwise she'd be paying rent. So our rule is you're either in school or you're paying rent if you're
right,
here
exactly.
over 20,
That's what my
20.
parents do with
Yeah.
the apartment. You're in school or you have a job and you're paying rent.
Yeah.
And right now I'm in school. So,
Yeah.
um, but like that's one thing that I just can't stress enough, because then you're not building your child up for success or that they're going to trust you with money. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And
Exemplification. If they see you doing well, then they're also going to do well.
exactly. And that was one thing I did love about my parents is whenever I got money, they would give it to me or they would or what they would do when I was a kid was they just let me keep it, or they would be like, "Hey, do you want me to put this in your account?"
Right. Right.
Like it was one or the other. And sometimes I chose to keep it, but that was a very rare thing. And so, but I would just be like, "Hey, put it in my account." And I know that they've always did that, that they put it in my account because I've seen when I was starting the stock account, I saw how much I had in there. That wasn't something that like could have been
Right.
raised if they weren't putting
Right.
if they were taking it.
Right.
So now that's not me saying for those parents who are in dire need. I understand life. So I was just stating that one thing to be like, if you don't need to, don't do it. You know what I mean? But
Right. Right. Let the money for the kids be the money for the kids. Yeah.
exactly. But so now going on to like when I was working with you and I was making money, and I wasn't putting that money into my stock account. I was using that to live, to pay rent,
Right.
to do the things I want to do for therapy, like the co-pays and stuff.
Which I think is very admirable too, because I feel like a lot of young adults would, you know, not prioritize healthcare,
mm,
and mental health is healthcare.
right,
It's part of your healthcare, and I know that I feel like there's a lot of young adults, teenagers, young adults who wouldn't put that in their budget, so to say.
right,
I know even as adults, we don't always put that in our budget,
right,
healthcare expenses. Um, as much as it sucks how much some of our copays and things are,
mm,
but they're there. And
right,
it's not gonna go away just because we don't prioritize it, and it's not gonna go away just because we don't attend to it, you know?
right,
So I think that's really important to remember too, is to make your healthcare
mhm,
part of your budget.
right,
It's essential, and then when you get older,
mhm,
it's just a natural thing you do,
right.
I
And
mean,
then
budgeting in general, but
right.
putting your healthcare in part of that.
And then like groceries and stuff. Now,
Yeah.
one thing I will say is that one thing that my parents did do, like in terms of groceries, is that my dad would like reimburse me for groceries because he knew that I was still not at a financial place to be able to get my own groceries. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Um, and that was really good of him. And that's what now he kind of reimburses me for kind of like everything right now. And I'm on like an allowance budget right now just because I'm in school and like I still want to, still do something, if I need it or watch a movie or
Right.
order DoorDash or something. But
But
um
that's doable for them.
yeah.
And they do that because they want to do that, because they can do that, you know? There are a lot of families who can't do that. I mean, I pay for my own college, once I moved out, I didn't have help, and that's just because my mom couldn't afford to do that, so not everybody can, but it's also a reason to start now as a teenager, as a young adult, so that when you have your own kids, you have your own family,
Right.
you can help pay half their college. We
Right.
do that for my oldest daughter. We pay for half her school, and that's because we've set things up to where we can
Right.
do that.
Exactly. Yes.
It's and I mean, he and I both, he paid for his own college. We didn't have that kind of luxury
Right.
to, and two, it's not a bad thing to have that luxury, right? Like,
Right.
most
Yeah.
people would like to have that, be able to have their parents help them. I know, I'm pretty sure, my cousins, their parents were, helped them with college and things. It sets them
Yeah.
up for easier success into the world.
Right.
However, we understand that not everybody can do that, and
Right.
that's
Right.
okay. If you can't, it's okay. We're
Right.
not
Exactly.
you're not here to be judged and whatever, but hopefully you can take these tips if you're a young adult listening, or even you're somebody in your 50s who is like, I'd like to do better for myself, and I'd like to be able to maybe help my grandkid with college or something like that. The conversation is literally for anybody, and can
Yeah. And I
benefit anybody at
do.
any stage.
Yeah. And then I do want to kind of like put this out there that, like, I understand that I've had a little bit more of a easier path in financial ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, and
which is
I
okay.
right, right. Which is which is okay.
Yeah,
Um, but that doesn't mean, I guess, in a sense of like my knowledge is still not like there, you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing about it is, yes, I still have help financially from my parents and stuff right now, but I've also taken a lot of what I've learned from my parents so that when I'm not depending on them anymore, that I can continue um that financial situation that I'm in now,
yeah,
the financial situation to take it to carry with me, because there has been a year or two where my parents didn't provide that financial help with groceries or whatever.
yeah.
I was still able to continue to get groceries. I was still continuing to be able to get what I need because I was working my butt off with two jobs. Like, I was doing things to be able to maintain the type of life that I have or
Right.
did have, you know.
Yeah.
Um so I guess in a sense is like, please, like, I guess in a sense, like, don't please just be like, oh, you're like a rich person or whatever, you know, and you had it easy. Um, because I guess in a sense, like, in a sense, I've had it easy, but in a sense I have not. So I guess just like, you know, just with the words I'm saying, just like take it into like consideration. It's not me being like, hey, oh, I'm better than money than you are, whoever's listening.
Yeah.
It's not me being like, hey, like, do this and
Right.
like it's gonna work out. I'm just saying stuff that has helped me to maintain what I have.
Yeah.
Um, and the type of lifestyle that I have. And um one thing that I will try to like also advise, or not advice necessarily, like I'm not in any position to really give advice, but one thing that I know has helped me is in your bank account, in your savings account, no matter what it is, find a good point in that. Let's say you have $1,500 in your account, right?
Right.
You got to factor in bills, got to factor in everything else. But let's say you figure out if you, now I know bills aren't this low, but let's say okay, 1,000, you have 1,500, bills and everything would be 250. So you're down to 250 for the week, you know, or whatever until the next paycheck or whatever. Now I know bills aren't that low. I'm just giving a number.
Yeah.
Um, and then it would be nice if they were, but they're not. I
I
understand.
mean, my son lives at home and his bills aren't even that low.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm just giving a random number though. But let's say, all right, so let's say you have that 1,250. Make your new zero that if it hits $1,000, you can't spend any more money.
Mm.
You tell yourself that's my zero.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my
That's a
oh
good, yeah,
crap.
yeah.
Like, oh, I've hit 1,000. I have no money now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you build the account, make a new higher zero and then make a new higher zero as you gain money, as you whatever you do. Of course, factor out the bills and all that and your
Yeah. Yeah.
expenses, but have a certain number to be your zero because that zero is going to be your emergency fund.
Yeah.
Like,
And the
like
good thing about that is that your zero could be $20 a month. It doesn't have to be 1,000.
right,
You're
exactly.
I used to do this when I was working part-time. Um my husband, fiance at the time, he was paying most of the bills because, well, I was only working part-time. I didn't have any of the businesses. I didn't have, any of that.
Mm,
So he paid the bills and I had money for gas and, kid stuff and whatever. Um and it's crazy because that was such a tight time financially,
mm,
and now it's crazy because
yeah,
he still pays the household bills and things like that. Um, but I'm able to contribute so much more. So my zero is a little, is a little different.
right.
Because if I see I'm over like $200, I mean, if I'm under like $200, I'm like, holy crap, like I'm freaking broke,
Yeah,
and my zero used to be like $50 max on a good week,
right,
and even 200 is still low for
right.
me,
Hmm.
but some months it's realistic. Like that, I like to keep. I my goal would be to keep a zero of 500 in
Hmm. Right,
certain accounts.
right,
Um, some months that's doable. Some months it's not. Sometimes
right.
some
It's
months it is, and I'm like, okay, well, I can do. I can take care of this. I can take care of the private school tuition, or certain things to take things off his plate.
right.
And then some months it's like, oh shit, my zero is a solid 200. That's
Right.
that's
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, with when I having that zero is to kind of get you more in the mindset of like, hey, like anything could happen in any second. I
right,
need
right.
to be prepared for that.
Yep.
Because like, I mean, I don't know. Let's say my parents they both go to jail, and they're like, hey, we need $1,000 to get us out, and I'll return that money to you,
Yeah.
but like, hey, like, can you do this? Because I can't access it in jail,
Right, right, right.
I'll
Yep.
be like, all right, yeah, I have it in my account right now. I'll figure it out to get you out. You know what I mean? Just like that type of thing,
Yep.
but like I would be like, first, what'd you do? Like, hey, like,
And
should I
let me
should I
decide if
let
I'm coming to
you
get you out.
exactly should I let you stay there and think about what you've done? Because
Right, right.
I thought this would be me, not you guys, but like here we are. But like, but of course, but or if it's like, oh, like I had to like go to the hospital or something, I have to pay the copay, like
Right. Right.
just like different things that could pop up that
Mhm.
you're not that you may not that may or may not happen, but it's good to have that cushion.
Right,
And
right.
then
Yeah.
also one thing is like once you start racking in good money, soon, not soon, I should say, over time, you'll be soon being able, or no, over time, you'll be able to go out to dinner, pay the bill without needing to stress and look into your account, make sure
Right.
you have
Right.
it, like everything like that, because I'm still in that stage where like, hey, like let me make sure I can afford this right now. But I'm hoping that one day as I get a job and all that, that I can do what my parents do. They look at the bill to make sure everything's good, but
Right.
like,
Well, because that's important too, knowing
right,
where you're putting your money. And even when
right.
you get to points where we've gone out to eat sometimes, and so me and my husband and I, our finances are separate, right? We have a joint business account, we have our personal
Mhm.
checkings and savings.
Mhm.
So I don't know what his numbers are. He doesn't know what my numbers are unless we discuss them or unless it's in the joint, right?
Right.
There's been times in the past where we'll go out and he believes in tipping
Mhm.
people who deserve it. He'll drop a $50 tip, and I'm like, how can you afford to do that? And like, well, because he does save. He has a really healthy portfolio,
Mhm.
but he doesn't mess with that money, right?
Yeah.
And he also saves in regular accounts. And so that when we do, I mean, you take all seven of us out to eat, and it's a pretty expensive bill.
I bet. Yeah.
And to be able to tip, I mean, just to make somebody's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like that was really, really
Mhm.
appreciated because,
Mhm.
well, you provided really good service, but you are also really personable,
Yeah.
just different things. People have kids, people have bills, whatever. When you can, we like to help people. So,
Okay.
but I'll look at him. I've looked at him in the past and be like, holy shit, like how'd you afford to do that?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I've learned about him is that he manages his money really well. And
Mhm.
when you can, and it's not all the time, but when you can do things like that, it feels nice. It feels
Right.
nice to be able to help other people or to just take your family out and pay for 7, 8 people's meals, kind of thing, and not have to stress about it. And
Right.
so we are at different places
Mhm.
in our finances.
Yeah.
I'm in a much better place than I used to be, but even I feel like mindset is important too.
Right. Mindset is a very big thing because the thing about it is you got to have discipline. You have
Right.
to
Right.
discipline yourself at this point.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have impulses, to buy something, and sometimes I'll feed into that impulse.
Right.
Like, but I know when I've reached like my limit, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, like, don't get this. I know you want to. I know I feel this inside, but
Yeah. I
I
even feel like I deserve it, but I don't need to do
right,
it. Yeah.
exactly. It's not a need,
Yeah.
and that's one thing you have to like teach your mind about the things you need and the things you want. And if I mean, I'm not saying like, hey, like you want to get those nice pair of shoes, go for it, treat
Yeah.
yourself. Just
Yeah.
don't make it a continuous thing, especially when you don't have the money for it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because
Oh,
one thing that I respect about like his and I's financial journey too,
mhm,
and even yourself, that I've noticed, but I'm not with you as much when you spend money. So, but our financial journeys is, like we mentioned, like, okay, well, there's times where we can do these things, but there's also
mhm,
times where we want to do them. And the reason we're
mhm.
able to do them later is because we know when to say, okay, I can't do this. Um,
Right, exactly.
say you're able to set your zero at 200, you leave that 200 in there, and if
Mhm.
your kids pressure you to go to Starbucks or something,
Mhm.
stick to that no,
Exactly.
because or they'll ask
Like
you, "Oh, can we go to
that's one
Texas Roadhouse?" "Not this
that is
week."
one thing I will say this. I am not a parent. I
Yeah.
am not. And you know that, and I know that. Everybody
I'm
probably
glad you know
knows.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, oh, that one text I sent you where I was like, I acted like I knew what like a marriage was as
Oh,
if I
yeah.
knew. Like I was like, sorry, but but anywho, I one thing I will say and some parents do have a hard time doing this, is stick to the answer no, especially when it comes to
Yes.
your financial situation. Kids think you have all the
Everything.
money in the world, you
Mm-hmm.
know? They're
Yep.
like this and that, and whether it's true or not,
Yeah.
like, that doesn't give them a right to being like, "Hey, like, I wanna do this, but you said no, so I'm just gonna keep pressuring you into it until you say yes." You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've been a kid like that, you know? I've been like, "Hey, like, let's go out to eat," you know?
Yeah.
And most of the time what they said was like, like, that's not healthy and stuff. Tonight I'm gonna make a meal." But in a sense, like, sometimes they're like, "No, that's a little expensive," you know? Like, we're not going to do that, you know, to
Yeah.
that night or whatever, you know. Sometimes what they will do to kind of like get my mind off it would be like, let's go for next week. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like, instead of just saying no and
Mm-hmm.
be like, we whether like we don't have the money for that or this or that, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever excuse, or that she's making dinner that night, she'll be like, they would be like, hey, let's try it for next week. You know, let's
Right.
if
Right.
this is the schedule, let's do it next week or this weekend or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, I
I
think it's
that was enough of an answer for me. Like, okay, like, I mean,
yeah.
I my mind went somewhere else at that point. Like,
I think it's easier to do that too when you have conversations with your kids about finance.
mhm,
Um, like I said, I did things differently with my older kids because I didn't have the life experience or the knowledge that I have now.
right.
Um, and trying to teach older kids about finances is tougher than an 8-year-old
It is because
or
they haven't built that pattern,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
patterns are harder to learn as we age.
yeah.
You know, having
It's
that
not
brain.
impossible, but it is definitely more difficult.
Exactly. It's like when you get a dog from a shelter, right? Let's say you get a puppy and you get an older dog. You try to train them both at the same time. Which one's going to learn faster?
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like a puppy and
yeah, the younger,
uh,
yeah.
the older dog, it's going to take more repetition, more like rebuild those neural pathways to understand what you are saying, you know?
Yeah.
Because once
Yeah,
it is human nature to do patterns.
yeah,
I mean, OCD, I think, is more of like a higher version of that. You know what I mean? Heightened
right.
of needing pattern and routine and whatever, you know? Um, because the thing about it is conditioned in our minds to go on pattern. So like you said
Yeah,
with Duncan, you know, what you kept doing was you kept feeding that part of your brain that says, "Hey, I want Dunkin'."
yeah.
Okay, let's go get it, you know?
Right, right.
So your brain thinks that every time it has that thought, you're gonna
I have to
do
fulfill it. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So that's just reinforcing in your mind that like, yeah, like we're gonna do this, you know,
right, right.
every single day or whatever it is, you know, have that
Yeah,
routine
yeah.
to stick with. And so to break that, you gotta be like, okay, no, and then start driving somewhere else. Or like,
That's
be like,
actually what I've been doing the
yeah,
past I'm, like, so proud of myself because, like, I had this
or eat
obsession with
something
Coke
before
Zero.
you or eat something before you leave, you know, because then
Yeah,
you'll be
yeah.
full and you'll be like, Dunkin' sounds like crap right now. You know what
Right,
I mean?
right. Well, my obsession was with, like, drinks, and my
Um,
husband's like, "You just have an obsession with cups." What I've been doing lately is I had this cup from Panera from,
mm,
like, I don't know, like, a week ago, and I just keep, like, cleaning it and reusing it, and I'm, like, keeping it in my car so
mm,
that when I get in, I already have this, like, like, restaurant cup,
mm.
and so I haven't really wanted to stop. I mean, it's like the impulse to stop. And I'm
Right.
like, it really is. I think it is really like the cup thing because I get drinks. I don't eat out a ton like fast food, but I'll stop. So the other day I was out and I went to 2 different places for Coke Zero. and they both didn't have it. I say, "You know what? Thank you. Thank you. I feel like it was a sign from God because it's time to cut the dark soda back out because I'm trying to do better in certain areas."
Yeah.
Um, it it is really, this kind of repetitive conditioning we have.
Right.
It
Yeah.
can be emotional crutch,
Mhm.
it can be a habitual thing. You
Mhm.
could absolutely love the place. I don't even think I'm obsessed with Dunkin'. I think I'm obsessed with that habit.
Right.
And we take that and we spend all this money, and like we said earlier, you
And
could be putting
also
that money into stocks or something that actually benefit you than the act you're completing for the stuff you don't even really want.
yeah, and also one thing that I remember you telling me about Duncan is you also like the company, you know?
Yes.
That's because
However,
sometimes what?
I enjoyed the socialization. However, something happened recently that kind of helped me to stop going there.
Mm,
So, so I get this message one day from a older gentleman who also goes, and he goes and he sits while his wife goes to doctor's appointments for the socialization.
um,
So he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, you got to get up here. They're walking out." So, so I go and they like the whole shift literally just walked out and quit, minus, like, 1 or 2 people that worked that shift.
mhm.
Yeah. So, I got to be a part of that. I was like, "Well," you know,
So
my
you went
my
there for the drama.
my friend I don't really I socialize with people here, I socialize with people out, but I don't, like, really hang out with friends. It really became this place where I could, like, hang out with people, I could get work done, and it was cool.
Yeah.
Well, now they're not there. One person is still there, and then this gentleman, he goes from time to time, but the atmosphere changed, and I'm kinda like, "Thank you," because I needed to detach myself from
Right.
this habit that was costing me money, and it wasn't really benefiting like, I was benefiting from the socialization,
Not enough to where, like,
I
it was
wasn't benefiting enough for this to keep being a thing, you know?
right, right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one thing too, is just kind of like I guess, like, one thing to, like, say is don't let being lonely I'm not saying you were lonely, I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
even with me, don't let being lonely be a reason why you need to spend money. You know what
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean? Like, just to be able to talk to somebody, that shouldn't be something you have to pay for. I mean, like,
Right.
therapy, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
you
A
know what I mean?
professional setting, yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, there's
but
support groups online, there's
right.
things that you can do.
And you probably have other friends, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right,
I mean
right.
like,
Yeah,
it's not just don't go out to, I'm saying, kind of like what you did, like, going out to Dunkin' just to, like, spend that money just so you can socialize and stuff, you know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Like, I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, but not
yeah,
in, like, a bad way, I'm just saying, like, that can really help a financial situation if
100%. Yeah,
you're doing it just for the camaraderie or whatever,
yeah,
and, um, just, I guess, like, in my opinion, spend money where you enjoy it, but also just make sure you can still live life while you do it. So,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, like, we're not suggesting, like, just stay at home and be a hermit and never live your
right,
life, but
right.
realistically, for yourself, for your kids, for your
Yep.
future, for your grandkids,
Mhm.
it it has to make sense. It has to benefit you, and your financial health
Right,
is a component of your overall well-being,
right,
and it's important to cater to it just like you would your physical health, your mental health,
right,
do things in a healthy way.
right,
And one way to do that is starting putting money in the right places.
right, exactly, and also, like, one thing that I also think is, like, good to just keep in mind is also, I guess one thing I wanna try to say is live life, you know what I mean? because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow,
Yeah.
but always be prepared for tomorrow. You know what I mean?
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I kind of view it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow might not happen. Something could happen today, but be prepared for it. Be prepared for the future. It might not happen because you never know God's plan, but still be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Live your life, do the fun things, but not every fun thing costs money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So spending time with your family, driving, it'll cost maybe some gas, but like go drive and do a hike or see the beauty of this world.
Yeah.
So that could be like 2 hours away from you, maybe less, depends where you live, but like go to a greenway. There's a lot of greenways around everywhere at this point. Like that doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
And money is something you can always get back. I will say almost always you can get back. But time and fun and experience is something you'll never get back. So
Yeah.
have to remember that aspect too. Just do it responsibly and to where that you can still have food for yourself, a roof over your head, the basic necessities of life. So.
Right. Yeah. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good.
Check us out on YouTube, ask questions, get information, and more at Just the Who of Us Podcast.